selection from our panel of MPs. We've got Labour's Preet Gill, Harriet Cross from the Conservatives, and the SNP's Pete Wishart. All here have been watching Prime Minister's Questions. Welcome, all of you. Preet, to you first of all. Kemi Badenoch really went at the Prime Minister on fuel duty. Whatever way you look at the semantics of whether it's been frozen or whether or not the decision will be made in the autumn, the fact is that she could have made a decision not to increase fuel duty in the autumn in her spring statement, which came after the war in Iran, and she didn't. Do you think that was an error?
I think the British public are really concerned about what the war means for the cost of living crisis, and what the Chancellor has been very clear yesterday as well, and the Prime Minister today, is that will be frozen till September. I think the focus, as the Prime Minister has said, is around de-escalation. The war is not in anyone's interest, and I think we have the right Prime Minister for our country leading us in terms of the decisions that he is making. You've got to look at this situation on a day-to-day basis. That's why the Chancellor is talking to the Bank of England Governor every single day. She's talking to the G7 finance ministers, because we've got to make sure that the route, the Strait of Hormuz is not restricted, and that the oil and gas can come through. But this is a fast-moving position, and we've got to, take a very considered approach. As the Prime Minister said, that is exactly what he is doing.
Harriet, the Conservatives are accused of fear-mongering by the Prime Minister there in Prime Minister's Questions. Fuel duty is frozen. It hasn't gone up. Whether or not it goes up in the autumn will be decided in the autumn. This is fear-mongering, isn't it?
There's no commitment to the freeze and fuel duty lasting past the autumn. To do that, there was a spring statement last week. That was a prime opportunity. The Chancellor did not take that opportunity. There's no fiscal event between now and September. When will she do it? Fuel duty will rise in September by 5p. That's how much it's been frozen by. That's how much it will go up by. Also, it's going to increase by RPI in later years, so it's going to go up again. So we're looking at a two-car household by the end of the decade, looking at almost £450 more in fuel duty, just because of decisions by this Chancellor made at this time, which is the worst time that they can be made.
But Keir Starmer's made it very clear that it can be reviewed between now and then, and the economic situation in the autumn may be very different. If this war ends in the next week, we may find we're in very, very different circumstances in the autumn, and it's therefore the right decision.
Fuel duty was an issue for drivers before the war started. It's going to be an issue after the war started. Cost of living, as Preet said herself, is a huge concern to people. That's regardless of if the war's happening or not. The war is making it worse, but it's not the only thing contributing to it. This is in the Prime Minister's power. This is in the Chancellor's power. They can impact this. They have a lot more impact over this than they have over other international decisions. If they want to support households, support drivers, support food production, for example, because it will all lead into that and the impact on food inflation, they can freeze fuel duty again. They can commit to that. They should have committed to that at the spring statement and supported households across the country.
We are supporting households, of course, because the cap on the energy price cap is frozen for the next 3 months. That means bills will come down by £117. The Warm Homes discount has been extended to 6 million more people. That's £150. This government is absolutely focused on the cost of living crisis, and it wants to de-escalate the war. We have over 300,000 British nationals that have registered in the region. Over 32,000 have arrived here, and that is the focus of the Prime Minister, as we saw in PMQs, saying that we have got to make sure that we are de-escalating. It is not in anyone's interest. The economic impact to our allies in the region, to ourselves, and that is what the British public want to see, a Prime Minister who is focused on British interests, British nationals, bringing down the cost of living, but trying to de-escalate this war.
Pete, let's bring you in. You represent a rural constituency. Fuel prices will be a big issue for your constituents, as will oil prices potentially. Lots of houses in Scotland off-grid up there.
Definitely. I've got loads of constituents who are really, really concerned about what's happening. And there was a packed meeting in the House of Commons this morning with a number of MPs who got together who have real issues about the availability and cost of heating oil. But I think what the public wanted to hear today, and I credit Kemi Badenoch to them trying to secure this, is they won't hike. There won't be this full fuel duty hike. There won't be an extra 5% going on the price of petrol. They wanted the Prime Minister to be very clear and upfront that this was going to happen. And it's just one part of a general picture that's starting to emerge since this conflict began. We've got mortgage rates going up, we've got interest rate difficulties, we've got cost of living crisis, and we've got a myriad of difficulties and problems. And I think what the public also want to hear is our Prime Minister just being a little bit more strident about some of the issues around this war. This is an illegal war. There's no legal foundation for the action the Americans and the Israelis taken. They
so
want them.
Then taken the right step of saying we're not going to get involved in attacking Iran, but we will defend British interests.
See, this is like the sort of half at war, half pregnancy type of debate because he's been very clear to
defending British interests.
Well, yeah, but like he's allowing the Americans to use British air bases in order to try and facilitate some of this military action. So what he's doing is, I think he wants to have it sort of both ways, where he's able to sort of claim that he's standing up to Trump and not being part of the general military action. But in the background, he's doing everything he possibly can to ensure that they are facilitated and they're supported. And I think Stephen Flynn was spot on today asking him just to condemn some of the things that we've seen. Some of that bombing on the school, for example, I mean, that is a war crime, if nothing else is. And I think the British people do not like this war. We've seen that in opinion polling. They feel very uncomfortable about this. There is no stated aims and objectives for the military action, and it's illegal.
And just on the, I'm getting into a bit of a thing between the Labour Party and the Conservative Party now about whether or not Kemi Badenoch did or didn't U-turn on positions last week. And I've been sent a transcript of her remarks on the BBC. The presenter asked...
Harriet? Do you want to put those to Harriet?
Well, I mean, I can't work out. She seems to be saying two things at once, because when she's asked about whether the UK should be in support of the US and Israel, she says, I said we support their actions. I never said we should join. I did say that where British bases are being attacked, we should do more than catch the arrows. We should stop the people who are attacking us, stop the archer. She then goes on to say, I haven't said that we should have gone in with the US and with Iran. I'm quite confused as to whether or not she is changing position or not on what she said last week, because she was quite clear in Prime Minister's questions last week that she thought the UK should have joined defensive strikes in Iran to try to take out drone capacity. What is her position?
Her position is, I mean, I believe clear, and I'm sure you'll challenge me on that, but I think her position has been clear. We support our allies, our crucial allies who have been allies for decades and will into the future as well. Iran is a threat to everybody. Regardless of if we are involved or not, they are a threat. We support our allies. So when our allies, America, Israel, were starting their campaign against Iran, we would have allowed them to use our bases. Labour are now allowing them to use the bases, but they're late. They were a week later, they've suddenly said this. We would have supported our allies from the start, let them use the bases.
To be clear, the Conservative Party position and your leader's position is that the UK should have joined defensive strikes into Iran with the US. That's your position.
We've always said that we would support our allies. Support our allies. We have a lot of assets in the region, a lot of nationals in the region, a lot of our military are in the region. We can't sit back and wait for something to happen. We can't sit back and hope something doesn't happen as well. We support their actions. We support the campaign. That doesn't mean that you have to go in all guns blazing. But as I said, we would have made sure that our, for example, HMS Dragon was in the region. Why was it sitting in port? We'd have allowed them to use our bases.
That wasn't the question. The question was defensive strikes into Iran, whether we would have joined defensive strikes into Iran, which was what she was asking last week.
A sitting duck. We'd have allowed our assets to have helped with our allies with their attempts to keep us safe, to keep the region safe, and to actually take down one of the most regimes that were really impacting the world. I mean, we've seen Iran having attacks on our soil here, targeting people in the UK. We saw what they did in January back to their own civilians. This was an awful regime, and it is correct that they are targeted. But as Kemi has said from the start, we support our allies in those actions. We would have allowed them to use our bases because a threat that Iran is posing is a threat to everyone.
So allowing them to use the bases, but not necessarily using British hardware or sending British troops in? We would have allowed them to use the bases from the beginning in the campaign, against Iran,
which America and Israel.
I think it does matter. I think it's an important question. The British public do want to know where each party stands on this position, and Reform and Conservatives have U-turned their position. I think the Prime Minister is absolutely right. What you can't do as a party leader is 1 week say, yes, of course, we should support our allies, and then the week later say, actually, I'm going to reserve my position and change. You're in a real-life situation.
But that's exactly what Labour did. Labour didn't allow them to use a basis and now are allowing them to use bases.
The Prime Minister had two principles. There's got to be a legal basis for this war, and there's got to be a clear, viable plan. And that is the reason that he has not entered in it. Now, Iran has retaliated in its attacks. It is attacking British bases. Of course, we must defend that position, and equally we must defend British nationals in the region. That is the first and primary responsibility of any Prime Minister of this country, and I am so glad it is Keir Starmer. But I have to say, your party have been absolutely unclear about this, and the fact that we haven't been prepared and the criticism levied at the Labour Party, I don't accept, because actually in January and February, we sent over 400 personnel, as well as equipment that was required, and HMS Dragon will be there this week. So this idea that we are not supporting our allies, and let's not forget, on the basis we are still working with the United States. We can disagree. I'm really proud that our Prime Minister is very clear about his position, and that's not why we are de-escalating the position.
I think Preet's absolutely right to have a go at Harry, but I'm not sure what the Labour Party position is at all. And to talk about U-turns when it comes in the past few weeks, we've seen plenty of that from Keir Starmer and the Labour Party. First, they weren't going to allow the use of American bases. Now they are allowing the use of American bases. And I think both the Labour Party and the Conservatives are going to have a good long look at this. This is too important for use U-turns and playing games and trying to get the right type of semantics, the right type of words. This is an illegal war that is causing economic difficulties and hardship right across the world. And I think there should be a lot more condemnation about what we're witnessing just now.
We're going to leave it there because we're out of time. Pete Wishart for the SNP, Harriet Cross for the Conservatives, and Preet Gill for Labour. Thank you all ever so much. Quick look at the weather.